welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into something fascinating, the whole world of audiovisual recycling.
Yeah, appropriation, remix culture, basically making new stuff from old stuff.
Exactly. And it feels like it's, everywhere now, a really fundamental shift in how media gets made.
It absolutely is. And our mission today really is to try and unify the language a bit.
Unify. How so?
Well, you hear different terms, right? Compilation, found footage, collage, they're often talked about separately.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. Depending on whether it's film class or art class sort of thing.
Pretty much, but the core idea, it's the same. And understanding that core reveals, well, a lot of potential. Aesthetically, critically.
Okay, I'm with you on art and critique. But you mentioned ecological potential. That one threw me a bit. How does reusing old videos connect to ecology?
It's a really interesting angle. Think about the sheer volume of media created, just data. So much of it becomes essentially media waste.
Like digital landfill, unused footage, old archives.
Exactly. Dead B-roll, forgotten tapes, stuff just sitting on servers consuming energy. The ecological idea is repurposing that vast stream of, well, abandoned cultural material.
Right. Giving it new life instead of letting it just sit there or disappear.
Precisely. It reframes the whole act of creation.
So the starting point isn't a blank page or an empty camera anymore. It's
Right.
an already full hard drive. It's creation based on reprocessing what's already there.
That's the key shift. Modern creation often assumes pre-existing content, not raw material. But, like we said, the way we've studied it has been fragmented.
So in documentaries, you'd call it archival montage.
Yeah, or compilation, but if it showed up in an art gallery or an experimental film,
Then it's found footage or collage.
got it.
Seems a bit arbitrary if the technique's the same.
It largely comes down to academic traditions, different disciplines, but the practice itself kind of demands we update our language.
So what are the alternatives? What terms help bridge that gap?
Well, some of the material we looked at suggests things like recycled audiovisual, maybe reemployment, or I quite like secondhand cinema.
Secondhand cinema, I like that.
Yeah,
It captures the feeling of using something pre-loved almost.
right. And it helps us see it as one big movement, addressing these long-standing ideas about, fragmentation, who the author really is, how we consume media.
And these aren't just digital age problems, are they? This anxiety goes way back.
Oh, absolutely. Back to the start of modernity, really. And interestingly, film itself seems born with this look backward.
How do you mean?
Think about it. Film arrives, and almost immediately, there's this urge to collect, to archive, this sort of nostalgia. It's what Jacques Derrida called archive fever.
Archive fever.
Mm.
Like a compulsion to hoard the past.
Kind of a compulsive, maybe nostalgic desire to return to the origin, to capture everything. You feel it yourself sometimes, right? Scrolling old photos, rewatching things.
Yeah, definitely. So cinema kind of baked in this cultural homesickness
Yeah.
from the get-go. That's wild.
It is. And it happened right as modern archives, libraries, museums, state records were really taking shape. So there's this inherent tension.
And that connects to this archival impulse idea.
Exactly. Hal Foster used that term. It's this tendency, especially in contemporary art, not just to use archives, but to actively make new archives out of existing stuff. It highlights how history isn't fixed, it's constructed, it's hybrid.
Okay, so this desire to dig through the past, to reuse it, is almost hardwired into film.
Mm-hmm.
Let's trace that past then. Where did it really kick off in the arts?
Well, you have to go back to the avant-garde, early 20th century.
Uh-huh.
And the big concept there is the ready-made.
Duchamp, right. The urinal, the bicycle wheel.
That's the one, coined around 1913. The key thing with the ready-made is selection and exposition.
So it's not about changing the object much, if at all.
Minimal or no alteration. The art is in the act of choosing something mundane, taking it out of context, and declaring it art.
Which sounds controversial. Where's the skill, the artistry? People must have asked that.
Oh, constantly. That was the whole point. To question what art is. And in film, the equivalent would be, say, taking a piece of completely forgotten footage, maybe some industrial film or old B-roll, and just presenting it. That's your cinematic ready-made.
Okay, so the core idea is selecting and recontextualizing. And that didn't stay just in visual art.
No, it jumped pretty quickly to literature. Think about the cut-up technique.
William Burroughs, Brian Gysin, mid-century stuff.
Yeah, 1960s mainly. They literally cut up written texts, even audio recordings, and then rearranged the pieces randomly.
Why? What was the goal? Just chaos?
Not exactly chaos, more like Unlocking unexpected meanings, breaking down conventional narrative and seeing what new connections emerged. It was pure appropriation, but on the textual level.
And didn't Burroughs himself point back even further to T.S. Eliot?
He did. He suggested Eliot's poem, The Wasteland, with all its fragments of different sources and voices. He said you could almost call that the first great cut-up collage, looking back.
Shows the impulse was there for a while. So, okay, visual art, literature. What about sound? Breaking down sound itself.
That brings us to musique concrete. Really important pioneers.
When was this?
Late 1940s, early 50s, people like Pierre Schaeffer in France, their whole thing was using recorded sounds, not musical notes, but like recordings of trains or doors closing, any ambient sound.
So using the real world as their sound source.
Exactly. They manipulated these recordings on tapes, speeding them up, slowing them down, reversing them, looping them. It was music made entirely from sonic recycling, bypassing traditional instruments and notation.
Fascinating. And then fast forward a bit and we get the remix, which feels very different.
It does, but the root is similar. Manipulating existing recordings. The term remix really comes out of disco.
Disco? How?
Think about the dance floor. Dancers wanted songs to last longer. So people like Tom Moulton in the late 60s, early 70s started taking existing tracks.
They're just extending them.
Yeah, but cleverly. He wouldn't just loop the whole song. He'd take the master tapes, find the percussive breaks, the instrumental sections, and physically cut the tape, loop those sections, splice them back in to make these extended dance versions. He was literally re-editing, remixing the source material for a new function.
Ah, okay. So the remix started as a practical thing for DJs and dancers.
Pretty much. But then, obviously, hip-hop took that idea and ran with it in a massive way.
Right. Sampling. This feels like the absolute explosion point for recycling in music.
No question. Late 70s, early 80s, Curtis Blow, Grandmaster Flash, and the Furious Five. They weren't just looping beats, they were scratching records, grabbing tiny snippets, hooks, drum breaks, vocal lines from other songs.
And building entirely new tracks out of these borrowed sounds.
Yeah, exactly. By the early 90s, the golden age of sampling, it was the dominant way hip-hop was made. It brought all these recognizable bits of funk, soul, jazz into a new context. Recognition became part of the pleasure.
Which leads naturally to the mashup, right?
Yeah.
That feels like sampling taken to an extreme, almost meta level.
It's definitely a very self-aware form. A mashup is essentially a specialized remix, but the key is often combining things that seem totally incompatible.
It's like a heavy metal guitar riff under a pop diva's vocals.
Precisely. Or blending two completely different songs that somehow work rhythmically or melodically. The goal is often that inusitado, the unexpected combination.
And a big part of the fun for the listener is recognizing the sources, isn't it? That aha moment.
Absolutely. Wait, I know that beat and I know that vocal. What are they doing together? It makes you actively aware of the appropriation. You engage with the sources.
Okay, so music really embraced this. Let's swing back to cinema. You mentioned montage earlier and how it has different meanings here.
Yeah, this is crucial. There's the high theory intellectual montage of Eisenstein creating meaning through collision.
Right, complex ideas. But that's not what most people think of as montage in a Hollywood movie.
No. Hollywood developed what we usually call the montage sequence, and its purpose is totally different.
It's about efficiency, isn't it? Telling the story quickly.
Exactly. Pure narrative utility. You need to show a character training hard or falling in love over time, or maybe a city waking up or a war progressing.
You stitch together a bunch of short shots, often with music over it, to condense that time.
Right. Short, quickly understood shots. And it's usually exhibitionist, meaning unlike smooth continuity editing that tries to be invisible, montage sequences often draw attention to themselves. You know you're watching a montage.
And didn't South Park just nail this perfectly? They literally had a song explaining it.
That's the ultimate meta joke on it. The song explicitly says, show a lot of things happening at once. Remind everyone of what's going on. That's called a montage. It became such a formula, such a cliche that everyone gets the reference.
Okay, so that's the utility montage. But how did film recycling evolve beyond just saving time in the plot? How did it become critical or shocking again?
It became intertextual. The technique might still involve rapid editing, rhythm, music. But instead of just showing plot points, it starts pulling in images from other sources.
Like in Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers.
Yeah.
That felt like being bombarded.
A prime example. You get rapid cuts, yes, but mixed in are clips from old commercials, cartoons, bits of B-movies, news footage, completely disparate stuff.
So it forces you to connect the main story to all these other cultural texts.
Precisely. The narrative is forced into a dialogue with this other media. It's not just telling a story, it's commenting on media itself, on violence, on culture. You, the viewer, have to work to process the sources and the commentary, much more demanding than the simple Hollywood sequence.
And this faster, fragmented, sample-heavy style that really got supercharged by music videos, didn't it?
Absolutely. The video clip, or music video, became a real breeding ground for audiovisual recycling.
Why them specifically?
Well, think about production. They were often made fast, relatively low budget, especially early on. This favored fragmentation, quick cuts, accelerated montage. Using existing footage was often cheaper and faster.
Plus, the goal wasn't necessarily smooth narrative, it was visual energy matching the music.
Right, so you got this mix of textures, visible cuts, animation, film clips, performance. It really solidified what some people call the zapping aesthetic.
Zapping. Like channel surfing.
Kind of, yeah, that rapid-fire consumption. And that aesthetic, you could argue, really paved the way for how we consume media now.
You mean with cable TV and then the internet, YouTube, TikTok?
Exactly. That whole style processing a huge density of information really fast, jumping between sources, it became the norm. Think about supercuts, video essays, memes. They all rely heavily on this aesthetic of accelerated, recycled montage.
Wow, so it went from avant-garde art to mainstream internet culture. It's been quite a journey we've traced.
It really has.
So just to sort of wrap this up, we've seen how reusing existing stuff, call it found footage, sampling, remix, whatever, isn't just some niche artistic practice. It's actually, well, it's core to how contemporary culture operates.
It really is. And it's not just about aesthetics. It's critical. It's a way to push back against this overwhelming flood of new content all the time.
How does it push back?
By forcing us to look again. Recycling allows us to create new conversations about history, about memory, about media itself, using the materials we already have. It stops our collective audiovisual past from just being buried under the endless stream of the now.
So we're basically swimming in this ocean of recorded history, personal and public, and recycling is like fishing things out and looking at them in a new light.
That's a great way to put it. It ensures that archives, whether they're official state archives or old B-movies or even just our own family videos, get reevaluated, re-seen instead of just forgotten.
Okay, so building on that, let's leave you, the listener, with the final thought. It connects back to Eisenstein, actually the idea that putting image and sound or text together creates new, often unintended meaning.
Right. So if the power of recycling lies in creating new, critical perspectives by applying that montage shock to old material, consider this. What happens if you apply that to your own media archive?
You mean like
Perfect.
own videos, old family tapes, social media stuff?
Exactly. Take those personal records. Now, imagine layering them with a completely different soundtrack, or maybe with text from a totally unrelated source, something that actively challenges what you think those images mean.
What hidden stories, what unexpected critiques might surface from your own life's footage when you deliberately subject it to that kind of re-employment shock?
What secrets would your personal archive tell if you forced it to speak in a new language? Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. We'll catch you next time for the next Keep Dive.